All right, so hello everyone, good morning. Thanks for joining us for our JIRA Fundamentals Primer webinar. We'll be recording this session and we'll submit a link to the recording to you over the next couple of days. So our next webinar is scheduled for November 5th at 11 a.m. Central. And the topic of this webinar will be Atlassian's newest product, JIRA Portfolio. As you have questions, you can please provide them in the questions utility via the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll queue them up and answer them towards the end of the session. So on the phone today from Praecipio Consulting, we have Charles Wells. Charles is a solutions architect, and he delivers a number of training sessions and product demos. He'll be presenting today's webinar. And my name is Shayla Sander. I'm a business development manager for Praecipio Consulting, and I'll be serving as your moderator. So just a little bit about us. We have been Atlassian expert partners for over 6 years now and are one of 4 enterprise platinum partners in the country. Over 95% of our projects are Atlassian related, and we have hundreds of clients across the US, ranging in size from 20-person companies to Fortune 20 enterprises. We help our clients with process-centric technology solutions that facilitate traditional business process management, IT service management based on ITIL, and software development life cycles. In the SDLC space, we're helping clients transition from waterfall to agile. So whatever widgets you produce, we can help improve the quality and the throughput at the lowest cost. We support our clients in all facets of the Atlassian product suite and build methodologies and solutions across the entire line of products. This includes solutions architecting and implementations, licensing, upgrades and maintenance, managed services, hosting, add-on development, and of course, training. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Charles to lead us through the webinar.
Thanks, Shayla. A little background on myself to start. For most of the previous year, I've been at Praecipio Consulting and have served as a product trainer to our clients. Prior to that, I spent 7 years in IT production operations support, using JIRA to facilitate ITIL-based processes around incidents, problems, changes, and other related areas. I've got lots of experience using JIRA as an incident tracking system in conjunction with leveraging Confluence to document procedural how-tos, troubleshooting articles, and policies. Let's go ahead and take a look at the topic list for today. Our topic map includes the basics to familiarize you with JIRA as an application and break down the major functional areas. We'll discuss what is JIRA, look at the various application elements. We've all got issues. We'll have a demo, and then we'll take some questions. Our content today is a streamlined version of our JIRA Fundamentals training class. So we'll begin today by discussing what JIRA is. Some of the subsections include, of course, what is JIRA, when is JIRA needed, and some basic use cases. So JIRA is a project tracking tool for teams building great software. Its flexibility and robust workflows facilitate effective execution of any process. Certainly, its initial use tended towards software development, but there's no reason to limit its potential, and we'll cover some of those when we get to the use cases. In a more general description, JIRA is a powerful and flexible application that enables many types of organizations of any size to mature process execution and obtain valuable information with which to make informed decisions. Let's talk about the major features of JIRA. First, it's a workflow engine. At its core, JIRA is a powerful state workflow engine that lets us capture any business process. We can also enforce process compliance by configuring rigor throughout the various stages of the workflow. This allows us to migrate our work through the lifecycle of specific tasks. In short, JIRA facilitates business processes, enhances process execution, and migrates our work through life cycles. With JIRA's workflow engine, we can track anything. Employees are constantly working on a number of tasks, real-world work items that need to be completed. We can track all manner of tasks in JIRA, defining them as generally or as specifically as needed. So we can use JIRA to track individual units of work, organize these tasks by project, and capture real-time statistics. And with that information, we can monitor and report. We can monitor the progress of issues throughout the life cycle. We can obtain actionable information simply by executing our process, and we can provide accurate, updated awareness in multiple formats. These features combine to allow our organization to make decisions rather than guesses. JIRA is the flagship application of Atlassian. Atlassian, who's in their 14th year of business, now enjoys over 40,000 customers across its product suite, much of which is geared around helping teams develop great software. When is JIRA needed? And you'll notice I titled this slide When rather than Why. Let's take a moment and discuss. That's because JIRA is often adopted when problems or obstacles have reached a tipping point, aka critical mass, and the right tool selection becomes a primary focus of getting things back on track. I like to call this crunch time, and I've personally seen this scenario several times in the last 8 years. Often a champion rises from the ranks of a project to suggest and coincidentally lead implementation of JIRA to help track and manage the work in question. This may also be reflective of JIRA's typical adoption, which is referred to as land and expand. As the name indicates, a local adoption results in great results, and JIRA is taken up by other organizational units to enhance their operations. And you get the idea of this cycle repeating itself. Alternatively, there's what I refer to as taking it up a notch. This scenario indicates a situation where technology is the lagging component of the IT service triad, or where it could be optimized, to say it another way. And oh, the triad? Well, the other two factors are people and process, and in this case, those have been defined as working well. So by leveraging JIRA, a company can take steps forward for process maturity, organizational integration, and efficiency in action. This approach tends to have a more strategic implementation with designs for phased approaches to reach the entire organization present from inception. This is a good time to mention the options available when selecting JIRA as the tool to help sort things out and streamline project work. Atlassian provides 3 deployment options for JIRA. First up is the cloud. This option allows companies to quickly start using JIRA and avoid the overhead and complexities of system administration, as Atlassian hosts and manages the instance. Customizations such as projects, fields, and workflows are still made by company personnel, but local personnel aren't tasked with the heavy lifting of system administration. Server is the second option. It allows companies to download and manage the application themselves. And this is great for companies where security policies are more easily managed behind a firewall, or where IT has sufficient resources to effectively manage JIRA upgrades and daily needs locally. And then we have Data Center. The newest option is best suited for enterprise deployments where JIRA is deeply integrated into corporate processes and culture and critical to daily operational success. Offering high availability, fast scalability, consistent performance, and premium support, JIRA Data Center represents Atlassian's continued commitment of adapting to customer needs to help transform how teams develop great products and get work done. For sample use cases, let's discuss a few options. Software development. The possibilities for tracking include bugs and defect management, new feature development, sprint management via agile board virtualization. We've also got field operations, and possibilities include safety inspections, new deployments or setups, and maintenance activities. For asset management, we can track ordering, location and deployment, as well as deprecation and retirement. And customer support. Most dear and close to my heart, we can track requests and incidents, create issues from email to interact with our client base, or further optimize our work with JIRA Service Desk. Our second section focuses on the user interface. Here we'll get familiar with the aspects of the interface, discuss JIRA's data hierarchy, and explore visualizing what we're tracking. First up, the UI and navigation. When logging in, the first eye-catching feature is the dark blue bar across the top, officially called the global header. There's a few parts I want to draw your attention to here. The horizontal lines on the left are strictly navigation links, quick links to other URL or web-based applications we use on a daily basis. The JIRA logo allows us to return to the default system dashboard at any time. The dashboard dropdown allows us to quickly navigate to the projects to which we have access and start to dig into the issues underneath. The projects dropdown allows us to quickly navigate those projects, and I think I got those transposed. The dashboard dropdown allows us to flip between our favorite dashboards. The projects is where we can get more specifics on those issues that we have access to. Underneath the issues dropdown, we can access the ability to search and refine a result set, so we can quickly locate issues that are of importance to us. Skipping a little bit to the Create button, here we can create new issues anywhere in the application. Next to that is the search. We can quickly locate all issues within a project, specify a specific issue, or start to initiate text-based searches. We've got the Help menu, underneath which we can access online documentation, the keyboard shortcuts, as well as new features present in our current release. And if we log in with the appropriate access, we get the administration gear icon toward the right, and we can quickly navigate to various sections of the administrative portal. So one of the most important topics for today is organization and hierarchy of the data. And we'll start to dig into that now. So we'll discuss projects. Information stored into JIRA is organized into projects. Because our real-world projects are composed of various types of work, we replicate that concept in JIRA by creating projects composed of specific issues. Viewing the project information is a great place to start when first accessing JIRA. Here you can learn specifics about the project, such as its components and versions, as well as browse the release roadmap and use predefined filters to sort through the issues. So while projects are the main organizational unit, they're certainly not alone. And here's a good summary of the data structure utilized within JIRA. We've got several levels to discuss, and we'll begin with projects. Of course, we'll have lots of projects in our JIRA instance, and we can logically group them however we'd like. This takes the official moniker of project categories, and we may use things such as organizational unit, geographic location, type of service, as some of the examples for categorizing our projects. Within a given project, we can further refine organization with components and versions. These are elements unique to each of our projects. Components allow us to break a project down into large building blocks. For instance, say we're dealing with a software development project. We may have components such as database, interface, and security. And we may have vastly different components for a different project. Versions allow us to track iterations over time. And I like to say this is a way of tracking maturity of a given item, be it a software package, an engineering design, or a manufactured cog. While often used in software design, versions can be utilized anywhere something develops or changes over time, and that information should be captured and tracked. Next up are issues. These are our real-world tasks or individual units of work that we want to capture, track, and report on. And we can define these as different issue types. Something like a new feature, an incident, or project deliverable. And remember, we can track anything within JIRA. And finally, some of our issues are larger or more complex and can be easily decomposed into a set of activities. Subtasks allow us to track and visualize these activities, which are often assigned to different resources to expedite overall issue completion. So once we've begun tracking items in JIRA, it's important to keep tabs on the progress and be able to identify important items or situations. And dashboards provide a place to gain such insights. All dashboards are composed of various gadgets that help display JIRA issues in various meaningful ways. The system dashboard is available to all users and is typically the first screen users see upon login. The system dashboard may be configured by JIRA administrators to provide an appropriate entry point for the organization. Dashboards can also be configured to report on the various issues within a particular project. These can be either general or specific, but the advantage is limiting our results to the issues contained within a single project. And dashboards serve an important function and allow instant visibility and intake of the current pulse of our issues. These may need to be strategic or tactical, and often are utilized by individuals or teams to help track a narrow set of issues. Our third section is You've Got Issues. Ain't that clever? And actually, for me, it never gets old because it's always true. But let's focus on JIRA and take a closer look at what we're really tracking. The specifics we'll be discussing include the anatomy of a ticket, finding our issues, and the issue lifecycle. True, in JIRA, the items we're tracking are technically called issues, but anatomy of an issue just doesn't sound right. Besides, in many organizations, ticket is the term of choice, or at least it's common slang. So I know I've referred to them as tickets on and off, and that's legitimately due to my experience. But of course, the proper JIRA term is issue, and that's what we're looking at here. Officially, this is the view issue operation within JIRA and shows the basics, such as title and description, as well as details required by the certain issue type configuration. On an issue, we can see lots of information that's grouped into separate sections. And we're looking at user input as captured in system and custom fields. We can also perform a number of actions at this point for this particular issue. And I'll discuss these more when we get into our demo portion. We can't look through every ticket in the system, so let's see how we can locate what's important to us. Having issues is one thing, but finding them can feel like something else entirely. Enter JIRA's Issue Navigator, the place to go for finding your issues. This simple interface provides multiple options to retrieve and view your issues. Let's explore those now. There's three major options for locating our issues. First up is the basic search. This is a GUI-based selection of field values, allowing us to select single or multiple values for a number of specific fields in order to refine a result set. Next, we've got the advanced search. This allows us to actually construct clauses to pinpoint a specific result set. It's not as GUI-based, and it does have some syntax of a query language, hence the term JIRA query language. And lastly, the hands-free. I just made that up for this webinar, but I kind of like it. This is essentially a filter subscription. So we've defined a search and we've saved it. And subscriptions let us schedule when searches run and send us the results via email, so we can keep up to date on our issues even when we're not presently looking at JIRA. So the issue lifecycle. You'll recall from our first section that JIRA is a powerful state workflow engine. And here's the breakdown in reality. Each of our issues is actually a real-world task that requires tracking from creation to completion. We can refer to this as the issue lifecycle, and quite often it's associated with a more formal business process. In JIRA, we construct these business processes as workflows, which show the stages an issue will move through during its lifecycle. Of course, we've got some application-specific terminology here as well, and specifically statuses, or the states an issue can be in, and the transitions or actions we can take to move an issue from one status to another. We're looking at a basic JIRA workflow. There are 5 statuses, represented by the colored lozenges, and the various transitions to move between them. It's important to note and to see that we can only move between statuses where transitions exist. And while this is a general and flexible workflow, I cannot move from the waiting for triage status to the reopen status because there's no transition connecting the two. As you'd expect, it's possible to construct complex workflows and enforce specific degrees of process rigor. But for our purposes in this fundamentals primer, understanding what a workflow is and how it's meaningful to an issue will suffice. You may check out Praecipio Consulting's website and view our other webinars to check on the JIRA Administration Primer or the Workflows Primer for more information. So we've covered a lot of concepts and seen some images which help. Well, let's go take a look at our demo instance of JIRA, and these concepts should start to come together. Bear with me as I transition out of Keynote and into a browser. So up first, let's revisit the global header. You'll recall that this dark blue bar at the top is present throughout the application, everywhere you're viewing JIRA. The navigation links on the left are again just quick links to other web-based applications that we may use on a daily basis. Just saves us a few clicks and some typing. We can click on the JIRA logo at any time to return to the system dashboard. Underneath the dashboard section, I can quickly navigate those dashboards that I have declared as favorites. I can also go to the Manage Dashboard options, which allows me to reorder my dashboards, to create new dashboards, or to search for dashboards. Underneath Projects, remember I can start to browse the projects to which I have access and get more familiar with the issues contained within each project. If I have the appropriate permission, I could create a new project from here as well. Our Issues dropdown gets us into the Issues Navigator. And if we have a current search, we could revisit it, or we could start a brand new search. We've also got a listing of some of the recent issues that we've viewed, as well as access to our favorite filters. Similar to the managing dashboards, we can manage our filters to browse those we have created, those that are popular, or search for other filters that may be useful to us. The nice thing about allowing users to share filters and dashboards is it helps limit redundancy of these created items, as well as provide flexibility. As a lead or manager, you may want to be creating some standards, and you can share those with your team to make sure they're using the elements that you'd like them to use. Some of these other options for Tempo, Service Desk, Agile, etc., these represent links into additional add-ons that we have in this particular instance. Add-ons are plugins that are available at the Atlassian Marketplace and help provide additional functionality within JIRA. In this case, what's displayed here will be a little bit dependent on the add-on itself, and depending on how large your window is, you may have additional add-ons rolled up under the More button. Remember, I can create a new issue anytime within JIRA with the Create button. This is really useful as I don't have to change and leave the screen that I'm on. I can create new issues and have those ready when I need to access them. I can also start to execute searches here. Again, I could browse through an entire project by entering the project key and get a listing of all the issues. I could put in a specific issue key, something like ESD01, if I wanted to access a particular issue. Or I could start executing a text-based search. Under the Help menu, again, I've got access to the online documentation, additional documentation for some of my third-party add-ons, a quick viewing of the keyboard shortcuts, as well as what's new in this particular version of JIRA. And when I log in with administrative privileges, I get the administrative gear, which allows me to quickly navigate various sections of the administrative portal. And lastly, we've got our user profile. We can view some of our personal information, browse the Atlassian Marketplace for third-party add-ons we would like to see in our instance, and we can make recommendations to our system add-ons or admins. We can also declare our dashboard that we want to see upon logging in, or we can log out. So that rounds out the global header. I'd also like to review the projects with you. This is a really important aspect of JIRA. When you log in and you've been given certain access to work on and view certain issues, those are categorized by project. So when we go browse a specific project, we can select it from our project dropdown, or we could go and view all projects. So here I'm particularly looking at the Expense-A-Go-Go service desk, and you'll notice that I do have an administrative tab. That means I've logged in with administrative privileges. Again, that's beyond the scope of our section today, so I'm going to focus on the overview. The project summary gives me a project description, as well as some insight into what's been happening. We notice a lot of activity or availability based on versions that have been defined for this project. We can see a 30-day summary for issues created versus resolved. And this is a demo instance, so you do see we're creating more issues than we're resolving. But this graph is important because ideally you've got a green line trending above, meaning you're resolving your issues faster than you're creating them. And a situation like this would indicate some kind of action would be necessary. And then lastly, on the summary page, we've got an activity stream which summarizes changes based on user. So you can see I've been making certain changes here in this application. If I went to show more, hopefully somebody else, yep, there's some other colleagues that have been logging in and dealing with our demo instance. The issues section is really important. As new users, this is somewhere you want to get familiar with for a couple of reasons. All these hyperlinks up top are predefined filters that help segment and sort the information within this project. We can browse all the issues. We can browse all unresolved issues, so those issues that are still in progress or open to some degree. We can sort by time, so what's been added recently, what's been resolved or updated recently. We can filter out those issues that are assigned to me that I'm responsible for, as well as those that I have reported. And if we scroll down through this issues section, we're looking at all the unresolved issues. This is driven off the resolution field value, which is a system default field. And here we've got them segmented out by priority, by assignee, a number of specific parameters. And we can click these hyperlinks on the left to further refine our exact results set. We've got version, status, summary. This is important. This is actually listing all the statuses available to the various workflows underneath this project. So again, to try and make that clear, these statuses may not all be present in one workflow, but they represent the statuses in all the workflows that I'm tracking under this particular project. I can also segment my issues by component, or again, the large building block of my particular project, as well as issue type. I'm not big on the fact that this is way at the bottom, but this is a great place to understand the kind of issues you're tracking within a certain project. When you see the actual issue listing by issue type, again, you get an idea of what we're tracking here in the Expense-A-Go-Go service desk. Access issues, assets, bugs, defects, etc. And these issue type listings may be different for each of your projects, but this is a great summary of the actual units of work you're tracking. Once we start to utilize versions in our project, we get access to the roadmap when we use the fixed version field value. So as we start to define certain issues as being fixes, we're creating a roadmap just by listing or attaching those issues to specific versions. And it gives us a nice visual representation. We get the release date, a listing of how many issues roll up under this particular version, as well as a graph indicating what's completed and what's still outstanding. The reports get you access to some of the canned reports available to all projects. This is nice when you need to run something ad hoc. You can select a specific report, refine your criteria, and get a visual right there of that actual report. Most of these reports mimic gadgets you could put on the dashboards, so this is also a great place to test out what a particular gadget may look like. Versions and components, again, we talked about these being project specific and unique. So the project administrators can define versions, note their release dates, and provide a description. If we go to manage versions, so again, assuming we're accessing with appropriate administrative privileges, we can reorder these, edit these, or note them as released or unreleased. And finally, underneath projects, we can see all the various components that we have defined. Again, this is an activity by the project lead. The components being the large building blocks that we can define our project. We can also specify specific component leads if we want to, which helps us leverage default assignee creation if we choose. So that's a lot about the project overview. I want to dig in a little bit more on the anatomy of a ticket. And first, I did want to show you the system dashboard versus a project dashboard. So the system dashboard is available to all users. There is a default layout, but this can be changed by your system administrator. The idea is it gives information that's relevant to everybody and probably rolled up at a very high level. Again, you can see all the activity stream that's been happening here within our demo instance. Activity stream is breaking things down by user and then project or application. We can include Confluence in our activity stream as well. You can see this gadget assigned to me, which lists those issues where I'm the assignee. I can quickly navigate to my favorite filters or my saved searches, as well as access JIRA's online documentation. If I look at a specific project dashboard, I've got the ability to change the layout with different columns. I can define the gadgets that I'm seeing. Let me try and refresh. That's better. There's around 50 gadgets that ship by default within JIRA, which help you slice and dice and visualize information in different ways. Certainly, we've got the pie chart, which is useful for splitting out data. In this case, I'm looking at my open blockers, so anything with a specific priority listing. I can click this pie piece to actually see the result set of issues. I can break that down another way, maybe look at my issues by status. Again, all the status is available via the workflows for this particular project. Or I may want to slice and dice my information a little bit differently using a two-dimensional filter here in the middle. So I'm actually, again, looking at my open blockers, but now I'm reviewing what the status is and what the specific issue types are. So there's a lot we can provide on a dashboard. Just a little bit about best practice. You really want to limit the scope and the audience. So first define the audience you're looking to present data to, and then decide, is this a strategic or tactical dashboard, which helps you understand what kind of information you want to provide. So let's look at a particular issue and start to talk about issue anatomy. You'll notice first up is my breadcrumb trail. This tells me the project I'm in, as well as the specific issue key for this particular issue. So again, we see that this issue view, or the view issue operation, is composed of a number of activities and specific fields. Those fields are custom fields as well as system defaults, and most of our system default fields are rolled up under our details section. You'll notice that all the bold sections are collapsible, which helps with the viewing of this particular issue. I can quickly see that this is an access issue type. Its priority is medium. It has no affected or fixed versions, but it does relate to the application Confluence as specified by my components. And I've even gone ahead and put a label of password on here. So I can start to get an idea that I'm looking at a password reset. And of course, the title should be self-explanatory, but in cases where it's not, I can decipher some additional detail. You'll notice that the fields are typically grouped in a number of specific ways. I've got people fields, so anytime I'm listing specific users, they're going to populate under the people section. I've got a dates section, which rolls up things like the created date, the updated date, or the due date. And if there's other date fields available, when I populate those, they will filter into this section as well. So a number of specific sections. I'm not going to get into all of them right now. Some of them are specific to the JIRA Service Desk add-on, such as the SLAs and the customer portal. But I do want to make sure that you're understanding that you can view specific field information here, as well as get an idea of what's happening on this ticket. So we've got the activity pane at the bottom. This is really important. We can segment information multiple ways, and I'll cover some of those briefly. We can look at all the activity here, but I typically like to segment out by tab. So of course we can have comments on an issue, which allows us to have a running dialogue with assignees or other collaborators, as well as the reporter in certain instances. So we can filter out by comment. We can look at the work log for our issue, so anytime someone is logging time spent against this issue, we can see that here. The history is going to track any of the changes to the field values or the workflow status. So again, cutting things like the work or the commenting out, we're specifically looking at changes. And then activity, Just like the activity pane on the dashboard, this is summarizing work based on user and when it happened. And then lastly, transitions. This is a new tab, but it helps us look at how the workflow transitions were executed and by whom. In the source and reviews tab, these are specific to additional applications made by Atlassian. So you can integrate additional things, and this is where you can note those particular integrations on a ticket. Let's look at some of the actions we can take. You'll notice the buttons up top. I can edit this issue, which allows me to change or update specific field values. I could change my summary. I could change my due date. I can change or add components, as well as specifying a number of specific things. I can change the assignee if I wanted to, or again, populate fields that currently don't have values. The complexity of the edit screen is just dependent on your specific issue type configuration. Again, I can comment on an issue, so I can start to define that dialog. I can assign this to a different user. And under the More dropdown, I can take a number of actions. I can actually log work against this issue. I could deal with it in JIRA Agile. So again, looking at things visually. I can attach files and screenshots, which are really helpful for keeping track of what I've done. I can deal with some people-related things, such as looking at the voters, watch the issue, or stop watching it. And remember, we talked about subtasks as a way to break an issue down into constituent activities. I can define those subtasks here, or I could even convert this particular issue to a subtask of another. It's important to understand these options at the bottom. I can move an issue to a different project or to a different issue type. This is kind of important, especially in the beginning, where users may not be creating issues appropriately. So this still allows you to manage those issues rather than having to recreate a lot of duplicates. We can link an issue to any other issue within JIRA, noting a specific relationship or dependency. We can clone this issue and use the clone as a basis for new work, or we can adjust the labels on this issue. So we can do a lot of things here. You noticed as I highlight some of these specific fields, I can actually update their values in line. I want to talk about the issue navigator, and then we'll get back into our workflow section. So remember, we have issues and we need to find those, and we can do that a couple different ways. If you recall, there were 3 ways we can interact. We've got the basic search right here, which allows us to refine our search results by selecting values for our fields in a graphical interface. You'll notice currently I'm displaying 772 issues. When I start to define specific values, I'm going to limit that result set. So simply by selecting a specific project, in this case our expense scope of service test, I go from 700 plus issues down to 78. I can also change things such as the assignee. Maybe I want to look at all those issues assigned to myself, and I narrow the results down to 3 issues. I can also add more fields to my basic search. If I wanted to look for those issues that I have reported, I can go ahead and again look at everybody for the assignee and specify myself as the reporter, getting down to 2 issues. So this is the basic search. It's really where most people start. And as you become a more proficient user and check your online documentation, you're going to want to become familiar with the advanced search. You can see here, instead of a graphical interface of selecting specific values, I can actually define the clauses that I want JIRA to search. I can combine these with and, or I can exclude things with or. I can enforce execution precedence with parentheses. There's a lot of things I can do with the advanced search to pinpoint specific result sets. And that's all based on defining specific clauses. So once we've got a specific search and we like the result set, and it's something we may need to execute again and again, we can save that as a filter. And I want to show this to you just quickly to see what you can do with that. Once you define a filter, you can share it, so you can have additional permissions and share with other users, or you can have a subscription to run this filter automatically. If I look at those permissions, you'll see some of the details I can change. I can give this filter a good description, decide if it's a favorite or not, and share it out with my colleagues. And when I define a subscription, I'm essentially telling JIRA when to run this filter and when to email me specific search results. Real quickly, let's go back to our issue and talk about the workflow. The status field here tells us this is currently in the waiting for support status. And if I wanted to view the other available statuses and transitions, I can click this hyperlink here. Now I'm looking at a visual representation of my workflow. Highlighted yellow is the current status I'm on, and when I mouse over that status, it highlights or bolds all the available transitions. So I can take my ticket from waiting for support to blocked externally. I could go to resolved, or I can go over here to waiting for customer. So I've got 3 available transitions from this particular status. Being able to see the workflow is a really nice way to get familiar with it. And then in addition to telling you the current status, right above that, I've got the available transitions. I can respond to the customer. I can note this as blocked externally, or I can resolve this issue. So always right above the status will be a summary of the available transitions to you at any given particular point. So that concludes our demo portion. Let's take some questions.
So Charles, we have our first question, and it says, how could I get invited to the JIRA portfolio session? Kirsten, we're going to be sending out the link of this webinar later this week, and there will be a link to register for it. You can also go to our website, praecipio.com, click the webinars tab, and there is a link to register for it there. And we'll also be sending out an invite next week, Wednesday. So you have 3 different options. So we have another question. Can you show us how to change issue types?
Sure. So let me try to get out of Keynote again. Okay. So I'm looking at a particular issue here, ESD 85. So currently this is an access issue type. Maybe I created this one incorrectly, right? And I want to switch the issue type. One of the ways I can do that is going back to my issue navigator. In this case, I'm going to go to the advanced search. I'm there. Okay. I'm going to bring up this particular issue. And then I'm going to execute what's called a bulk operation. So under the tools option or the tools gear, I can change a number of specific things about this issue. So I can actually select this particular issue, go select my operation. In this case, I want to move the issue. So I can define to move this. Next, it's going to prompt me, how do I want to move it? Do I want to move the project and the issue type, or just one or the other? So here you see first is the project that's listed, Expense a Go-Go, and I can send this to a different project if I need to. However, if I just need to change the issue type, I can go from access to any other available issue type within my project. So in this case, maybe I want to convert this to a task. I'll hit next, and then I'll get a confirmation. JIRA will basically give me any warnings if they're going to be there. I don't want to send a mail update, so I'll deselect that and hit next. Here's my confirmation step, summarizing that I'm going to the same project, but a new issue type. All right, now I'm going to go view my issue type again, and it's no longer an access issue type, it's a task issue type. Now I showed you the long way so you understand what's actually happening. You can access the specific options for that as well under the more button on your issue and going to move. Get you into the same place. But I wanted you to be familiar with the bulk operation.
Okay, great. Thanks, Charles. Next question. Is there a time card functionality part of the base application, or is it an add-on?
So it's a great question. Tempo is actually an add-on called Tempo Timesheets. There's a few other applications made by Tempo. Timesheets is the most popular. There is a way you can activate time reporting or time tracking for the application outside of Tempo, and there is a base time reporting or time tracking option. So that does have to be activated by your system administrators. It is a global one-time activation. And once you do that, you basically get the ability to log work against ticket. So this gives you access to a few different fields. You've essentially got the original estimate, field that you can put on the creation of a ticket or on the edit screen, and then your users can log work against it. Now, this particular log work screen looks a little bit more complex because it's integrated with Tempo, but your default log work screen essentially allows you to declare how many minutes, hours, or days you've spent, and then it will deduct any of that work against your estimate. So let's see if I can do this here. I can change my estimate to 12 hours. Because this is integrated with timesheets, there may be additional information I need, but hopefully I can log this and show you the basics. So now you see we have a time tracking section on our ticket. We did not have an original estimate declared, so that's not specified, but you can see that I've logged 3/4 of a day, and I have 1.5 days remaining. So this is showing you essentially what the base time tracking is. The additional fields and work logging that come with Tempo enhance a lot of what's there by the base default.
Great, thanks. So another question, is there a system admin dashboard?
There is a system administrator portal. I wouldn't say there's necessarily a dashboard, but under the administration gear in the global header, you can start to navigate to the administration section, or what I call the portal. It's really just the place that all the administrative items live. So when you're in administration, you get the nice administrative title up here, and you've got between 5 and 7 tabs depending on what's available to you. You can deal with the projects, you can deal with the issues themselves, which really summarizes a number of the specific configurations, workflows, schemes, screens, etc. So underneath issues is really a lot of the specific configuration you're going to be creating. User management is just that, users and groups, as well as external user directories if you're configuring or linking into an external system for user management. You've got the system, which is again global settings, and then you've got add-ons, which deal with all the third-party plugins you've got from the marketplace. So yep, there is an administrative portal. You do need specific access and rights in order to see this.
Great, thanks. So another question, can you have different workflows for different types of issues?
Yes. So let's go look at that quickly, and hopefully we've got something configured here. If I go browse my Expense-A-Go-Go Service Desk project, and I go into administration, and I look at the various issue types associated with this particular project. So let me see if I can hopefully find something that's got unique workflows. So when I look at my asset issue type, it tells me I'm using the asset management workflow. So you'll notice here about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different statuses and a number of transitions. If I go to access, we should have a very different workflow. Now we're using the JIRA Service Desk IT support workflow. So yeah, just our very lightweight 5 status workflow here. So yes, that's really the idea, that each of your individual issue types has a different business process associated with it, and you can certainly create, define, and associate unique workflows with those various issue types.
Okay, let's see. Can you edit multiple tasks on one screen and update them all at once?
I lost you again, Shayla. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, sorry. Can you edit multiple tasks on one screen and update them all at once?
Yes, so let's go back to our issue navigator. So from the issue navigator, I can look at a number of issues at one time. In this case, I'm in the advanced search, but that's really not important. What is important is the view we're looking at. This is actually the detailed view, and you've got a couple options. So the detailed view gets you a quick running total of all the issues on the left. And then when you're highlighting or viewing a specific issue, it's going to show you that view issue screen on the right. So you'll notice as I transition and click down my list, it actually populates with the new view issue screen on the right. Hopefully you can see those issue keys updating: train 9, train 8, back to train ABC-1. So I can look at a number of issues. I could switch over to the list view, which gives me a more tabular presentation. In this case, I'm sorting, or I've got the ability to sort by a number of specific field values, the issue key, the summary, the assignee, the reporter. I can define what columns I'm looking at here in the list view. So let me go ahead and define a quick search. If I wanted to look at project equals ESD, so our expense to go service desk, and assignee is the current user, myself, I should have 3 issues. If I wanted to deal with these all at the same time rather than change them individually, again, I can go to the tools in my bulk operation, and I can do a number of things to these issues as a group. I can select them all, and I can actually edit specific values. So edit and update actual field values. I can move them, as we saw before, to a different project and or issue type. I can transition these issues through their workflow. If I've got permission to do so, I could delete these issues from the system. I can watch them, which means I'm going to start getting email notification anytime something changes. Or I could stop watching these issues if I wanted to limit the number of email coming back to me. But this is really how you can deal with the number of results at once, rather than go through line by line.
Great, thanks. Let's see. Can we assign different roles to allow each role to have Can we assign different roles to allow each role to have a unique dashboard?
So that's kind of 2 unrelated questions. Yes, you can assign specific roles. If we go look at our particular project, roles are really a large bucket that administrators can create and allow project administrators to put individual users and groups into. It's potentially one of the more tricky concepts within JIRA until you start playing around with it. All that to say, you can have multiple project roles available to all your projects, and then your project leads can go ahead and decide who's a user or what group is a particular assignee for these project roles. So that's the roles aspect. Now, when we talk about dashboards, you can actually create dashboards for a number of different types of folks. Let's go look at our expense to go dashboard. We know that dashboards are one of the 2 shared items we can create, the other being filters. And if I have the ability to edit this one, and I may not, let me see if I can manage my dashboards and find one that I've got access to. All right, as my user, I can't actually edit any of these. Let me log out and log back in and try and show you how we can do that. Because basically, yes, you can share a dashboard with those specific roles that I showed you previously. All right, so now I have access. I can go to my tools gear and I can edit this dashboard. When I do that, I've got the ability to share it out. I could share it with everybody in our JIRA instance. I could share it with a specific group of users, or I can define and share it with a specific project. And if I do that, once I select my project, I can select those specific project roles to share with. If I wanted to share this with my application leads and then my developers, I can do that. So I can define a number of specific shares for this particular dashboard. And I think that's what the question was asking there.
I think you're right. We have actually kind of a similar question, but I think you pretty much just answered it. But the question is, I have different types of users. I have product managers that need to see reports that show anything open for their multiple websites. I have programmers who need to see everything that is open for them to do. Can I associate users with specific websites? Can I create different views for different types of users?
So yes, you can create different views or different dashboards based on your users. And then I would try and put those users or groups into specific project roles and share the dashboards accordingly using the roles. So yeah, I think you're right, Shayla. We covered those concepts with the project roles and then the dashboard sharing. So that would just be up to their specific needs and how they want to configure that.
Great. Okay, and then we have one more. Can I reassign issues to a programmer in one screen?
Yep. So if we go look at our specific ticket, ESD-85, So on a ticket, on any particular ticket, I've got the assign button. So currently I'm listed as the assignee. I can change that by going here, and I'm logged in as the administrator, which is why it's giving me the assign to me button. So if you did want to assign it to yourself, you just click the hyperlink and it'll update the assignee, or you can hit the assign button and select a new user. Once you do that, you've updated the assignee. You didn't have to change your screen at all.
Great. Yeah, there's also inline editing that you can do to change the assignee as well. Oh, one more.
Yep.
Oh,
we can do it right here.
It says, but that is issue by issue. So I'm guessing you're asking to change the assignee on multiple issues in one screen. Was that correct, Glenelle? Yeah, Charles, I think they're asking to see how to change the assignee for multiple issues in one screen.
Okay, sure, so we can do that. Currently, so now I'm back in the Expense Go service desk. I'm looking at issues assigned to the current user, which remember I logged out as myself and I logged in as administrator. So now we have 43 issues assigned to the administrator. Remember, I can use bulk operations to update specific fields. I can select all of these, select the edit operation, and then update the assignee value. So I can deal with all of these issues as a whole. I'm going to change the assignee. I'm going to assign them all to myself. Actually, sorry, they are assigned to me. I want to assign them to my other self. Go all the way to the bottom. You can see you can update a number of fields at the same time. I don't want to send an email for this update. I'm going to confirm this. The new assignee is Charles Wells as opposed to administrator. And now we go back and run our search for the Expense Go service desk project, looking for the current user as the assignee. There are no issues because now the administrator has nothing assigned to them. We transition them all to Charles.
Great, thanks, Charles. I think that's it for our questions. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Remember, our next webinar is going to be November 5th at 11 a.m. Central, and that's going to be showing you an introduction to JIRA Portfolio, Atlassian's newest project. Yeah, thank you, everybody, for your time. We'll be sending out a link over the next few days.